Okay, hello guys. If anyone is here, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I'll wait a few minutes because I know that there is sometimes a bit of a delay. I can see 2 people have signed in, 4 people. Hello, welcome to my Facebook Live. Let me know where you're from in the comments, okay? I know we've got people watching in South Africa, people watching in the UK, maybe you're from America, or maybe you're from somewhere else. Let me know. Hello from High Wycombe, UK. Hello, welcome to our Facebook Live. It's nice to meet you all. Okay, so I'll just wait a couple minutes for people to join us. But while we're waiting, hello, my name is Aileen. It was hard for me not to say hello, my name is Teacher Aileen then. That's how I'm used to introducing myself now. But hello, I am Aileen. I'm from the northeast of Scotland in the UK. I'm from Aberdeen. I'm actually from just outside Aberdeen, a small village called Hatton, if anyone's heard of that. And I am 26 and I've been living and working in Asia for almost 3 years now. So I'm very excited to share some of my stories and some of my experiences with you guys. So anybody else? Hello from Ireland, from Canada, South Africa, Australia. Hello, South Africa. Your first webinar, is that Rosalie? Nice to meet you. Hi from Scotland, Evie. Hello from Ireland, from Johannesburg, UK. Wow, great. We're from all over the place. I actually lived in South Africa for 3 months. Hey, South Africa living in Myanmar. Amazing. I'm also living in Myanmar, so great to meet you. Hi from the UK, from Faye. Hello from South Africa. Trinidad and Tobago. Amazing. Great. Okay, welcome to the live. Like I said, my name is Aileen, or Teacher Aileen, as I'm more used to introducing myself as. And I am a teacher in Myanmar at the moment, but I've also worked in China. So I have been a teacher in Asia coming up for 3 years now. I started my Tefl journey in 2017, which feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only 3 years ago, which is wild. So I started my West Coast US, welcome. I started my Tefl journey because I graduated university and suddenly thought, actually, I don't want to work in an office. I applied for a few jobs and I kind of didn't hear anything back. I think I applied for about 6 jobs in the UK after I graduated in communication design. I didn't get a reply from any of those jobs. So I thought, okay, I tried to get a graduate job. Now I want to travel. But I wasn't really sure how I was going to do that. And I had looked into studying and getting my Tefl qualification. But as I researched, I could only find like courses at my local college, like, oh, study how to teach Tefl. And I was like, oh, I really don't want to do another year of higher education. By this point, I had done 6 years of higher education and I was just about ready to leave that behind me. I was not keen on that. So one day I had just been climbing my favorite hill in Aberdeenshire. I'd been climbing Benaghy. Love that hill. It is my favorite place to go and just relax. I love to go at sunrise, and that's what I'd done that morning. I'd driven back into my hometown of Aberdeen and dropped my friend off. I was like, okay, I need to go pick some stuff up. I need to go to the post office. As I was walking to the post office, I walked past a travel agent, and I don't know what it was, but something made me, instead of carrying on, something made me just walk straight in to the travel agent. I don't know what it was. You could call it fate. You could call it me just knowing my whole life that I wanted to travel. But there I was in the travel agent. And he said, okay, where do you want to go? And I said, everywhere. So, yeah, I ended up talking to him for a while, the travel agent in, I think it was SDA Travel, which have sadly now closed down. But I was in there for like an hour and he was giving me brochures, he was giving me all these options, and then he said, have you ever considered TEFL? And I went, yeah, but I don't want to study for ages again. I've just done 6 years of higher education. I'm not interested in studying for so long again. And he went, well, actually, Eye-to-Eye TEFL has an online course, and it will only take you about 3 to 4 months. You can do it quicker than that if you want to, and it's all online. And I was like, that sounds perfect. That sounds amazing. So yeah, I signed up in end of October 2017 to do Eye-to-Eye TEFL's online TEFL course. And I'm not going to lie, I procrastinated through a lot of it, and I ended up doing most of it in the last month. I had a certain amount of time to do it, but I'm a procrastinator at heart, so it did take me a while to crack down and actually study it. But once I studied it, I was learning so much interesting information about teaching and about all the theory, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. So yeah, that was where my TEFL journey started. I'm hoping that that's similar to what you guys are thinking now. You're like, what am I going to do? Like, where am I going to go? TEFL is at the door. Just open it and you can go where you want. So I've seen a couple more messages. We've got Daniel from South Africa, and then we've got somebody saying, hi all from Italy. Hello and welcome to our live. So I've given you a little bit of an introduction about how I got started and why I decided to do TEFL and what drew me to Eye-to-Eye. It was just the fact that I could chill and do it at home in my own time and get it done when I wanted, and that was just the most perfect thing for me after studying for a long time. So maybe you're fed up with high school, you've finished high school, you're like, I don't want to go any further with this. And I also just signed up for Eye-to-Eye TEFL course now, end of October. Amazing! So 3 years after me, perfect. Hi from Leicester in the UK. Hello, welcome. Hello from Johannesburg. Hello, welcome. So TEFL qualification. Yeah, I signed up the end of October, and I signed up for the internship program in China. So while I was at university, I had this wild dream in my head. I was like, I want to go and work with pandas. They're my favorite animal. I want to go work with pandas. I'm just going to, when I finish uni, I'm going to take a month and just, go and work with pandas. That's what I want to do. But while I was at uni, good news, pandas were taken off the critically endangered species list, and all of the panda programs that I had been looking at just kind of disappeared. Hello, Talani. Hello. Oh, it's so good to see you in our live. Welcome. I used to work with Talani here in Myanmar. It's great to see you on our live. So yeah, my hopes were dashed. I couldn't go and work with pandas in China like I'd wanted to, but with TEFL I could still go to China. So I signed myself up and I hopped on a plane in February of 2018 to China. Somebody has just asked, I would like to know if I need a degree to teach abroad. Not necessary. Nope, you can definitely teach abroad without a degree, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So yeah, I signed up for the internship program in China. Now, I had no idea what to expect, if I'm honest. I signed up and I was, like I said, I'm a procrastinator. I had nothing prepared. I got my visa somehow. So my visa was actually a 6-month student visa. So that meant, I think it's called the X visa. And that meant I had to have my flight booked. I had to have a letter from the university, and I had to have proof of accommodation where I was going to be staying. So I had a letter from the University of Harbin saying I was here to learn Chinese and I was here to learn how to be an English teacher. So that was great. We were supposed to do our induction week in Harbin, but because we arrived during Chinese New Year, we arrived in Beijing instead, and we did our induction week there. So we had a 1-week induction, and that was kind of like our interview process. So I didn't actually have an interview for my particular first TEFL job. I arrived as an intern in China. and they said, okay, we're going to watch you over this week and we'll decide where to place you based on that. So I was given the option to write my 3 preferred places in China, like where's the best place you would like to go. And I said I want to work in the south of China because I'd also signed up for 6 months in Vietnam after my trip to China. So I got my placement. I was placed in the south of China just like I'd asked. Not everyone was placed in their first place. Like I said, they observe you over the week of induction, and they decide like where was going to be best for you to go. And luckily they decided, yes, you're fine, you can go to the south of China, because all I had packed was warm weather clothes. I had one jumper with me. I wore it the whole week in Beijing because Beijing was freezing when I arrived in February. So that was kind of the induction process. That was like my interview for the job. I ended up staying in China another 6 months, and again, I didn't have to do an interview for that. My school was very happy with what I'd been doing for the previous 6 months on my internship. They offered me a full-time contract, and they were quite happy to go ahead with that, and I signed on and then got a full work permit, which my school completely handled all of that. All I had to do was get a medical test. So they took some blood, they took my weight, they did an x-ray. It was crazy. The amount of medical, I've never had a medical checkup quite as in-depth as the one I got when I was in China for my official work permit. And I'm terrified of needles, so I was a little bit scared, but my coordinator in China, the girl who was in charge, she was about the same age as me, and she was from China, and she was so lovely, and she held my hand through the whole process and made sure I was going to be fine. So that was the scariest part about getting a visa in China, I think, was the medical checkup. But apart from that, everything was handled by my school, and it was perfect. So I'm just going to check if anybody's got any questions about the visa process or anything like that. You can let me know now. Okay, let me have a look. I answered the one about needing a degree. You don't need a degree to teach in Tefl. You are fine. You can do that. Just reaching the end of my course. Could you help me get some confidence for a business English lesson? Okay, see, Eye to Eye has replied to you on that. So I've never taught business English myself, but I do teach adults. Sorry. So what I would say about teaching adults is to just go in there with like full confidence. They're just people like you. They're probably so terrified. They're never had an English training before, or maybe they've never had English training from a foreigner before. So what I would say is just go in there and be like, just be friendly, just be happy, excited to see them, and just let them know that you're human too, and then you'll build that connection, and the confidence will come with the connection. If you're connected to your students, you don't need to worry about being nervous because you've got that relationship with them, and you can go in there. So the first day, I would just get some icebreakers out of the way, and that will, sorry, I need to take some water, but that will really help you with your confidence. Icebreakers are for the students as much as they are for you. You don't know anything about your students yet, so get some icebreakers. And all those icebreakers you've done maybe in high school, or maybe if you're in an office job, or maybe if you're at uni, all those icebreakers with the building things with marshmallows and spaghettis, those work. All the icebreakers where you have to say 3 things about you, or 2 truths, 1 lie. These are really helpful ways for you to build a relationship with your students. You can get to know them a little bit, and that will just help with your confidence so much, because if you're going in there and you're standing at the front and you're like, I'm the teacher, they're the students, end of story, like, you're going to be nervous every time you go in. And I think the best thing to do is just relax, get to know them, and the confidence will come with that. If you're happy to be there and they're happy to be there, you don't need to worry about being nervous or having the confidence to teach. Because, I mean, I said I need to drink some water, but I'm still talking. But yeah, as I said, like, having that relationship with your students will really help with confidence, especially if it's adults. I know when I first started teaching adults, I was so scared because it was so out of my comfort zone. I was like, I teach 6-year-olds, that's what I'm good at. I'm so scared to teach adults. But yeah, break the ice and just get that back and forth with them and you're fine. Where do I teach? I currently teach in Myanmar, so that is a country next to Thailand in Southeast Asia, if you've not heard of it before. Having some degree of proficiency in another language. So I think the only thing that I would say about having a proficiency in another language is it might just help you to understand your students a bit more. You've maybe learned another one, so maybe that would help you, like, you know what I mean? Like, you understand what they're going through. They're learning a second language. So that would be the only thing I would say about having a proficiency in another language. It would just help you to understand your students a bit more, but you really don't need to know another language before you start teaching English, because most of the time the schools will want you to just talk in English, and they won't want you to use your the country you're teaching in. They won't want you to use that language because they want the students to be thinking in English and understanding in English. Okay, did you stay in Shenzhen? I work with a Chinese company now, and I've visited Shenzhen many times and I loved it. I lived really close to Shenzhen. I lived in a town called Zhongshan. Well, just outside of Zhongshan, it was Sanxiang, which is quite a small for China area of China. So the nearest big city was Zhongshan. So that's really close to Shenzhen. I think it only takes about 3 hours to get to Shenzhen. So that was great. I really want to work in Japan. It would be so amazing to work in Japan. How hard is it to get a visa there? That is something I don't know about. I've never actually worked in Japan, but I would say if you're interested in about visas and stuff, there's so much information online. So I would look online, look on YouTube, look on places like that, and maybe Eye to Eye has some information about visas in Japan. I'm not sure about that. Info regarding online teaching. I teach online at the moment, but it's through my school here in Myanmar. So again, maybe Eye to Eye can help you with that question in regards to getting a job online. Actually, they have a previous Facebook Live, which might be really helpful for you in terms of talking about teaching online. Roughly how long does the visa process take? Like I said, I'm a procrastinator, so I should have started a lot of time before. I think the longest thing for me was getting my criminal background check. I had a few problems with that, so I would recommend getting that quite soon because it can take a bit longer. I had some problems. They couldn't find me based on my driver's license. So criminal background check can take a little bit of time. So it just depends on if you're going to have issues or not. I also had friends who were from South Africa living in China when we had to get our official work permit, and they had to go all the way to Shanghai. Then Shanghai had to send stuff to South Africa, and South Africa had to send stuff back to China. So it really depends. I did a teaching assistant job 10 years ago in France. Yes, that will definitely help with placement. Is it Trisha? Having teaching experience, it will help you so much. If you don't have teaching experience, think about things you've done in your life. Were you a member of Girl Guides? Were you a member of Scouts? I used to work at Pizza Express, and I did pizza making parties with kids, and that really helped me with my my application. So I was a young leader for my guiding unit. I had worked for some children's charities before, and I also had my pizza making parties from Pizza Express. So no actual teaching experience, but it was all working with children and things like that. So that really helped with my application. So just look throughout your life and think about what kind of things can I apply to teaching, like what things are applicable. So like I said, I had no teaching experience, but I had other things in my life that I could link in and put on my CV, on my application. If you have a 4-year teaching degree, do you still need to do a TEFL course? Yes, I think so. Again, Eye to Eye can help you with that, Dale. But what I would say about that is having a teaching degree is great, but teaching TEFL requires so many other things that if you do your TEFL degree, your 120 hours or whatever it is you decide to do, that is going to help you out so much, because it's like a completely other way of thinking. Like I've met a lot of people throughout the past 3 years who have teaching degrees, but they've struggled to adapt to teaching English because it's just such a different way of looking at things that they found it quite difficult. So doing a TEFL course is going to help you out so much. Even if it says on the job advertisement that you don't need it, I would still recommend doing it because it's just going to help you to understand your students more and understand the different methods of teaching that TEFL requires that you might not need if you're teaching normally. I want to teach abroad, but I'm so scared and have never traveled abroad. Okay, Leanne, what I would say is it is scary. I'm not going to lie to you. I first went abroad by myself to South Africa, and I was so scared. The first night I got to South Africa, I cried the whole time. I was like, what am I doing? This is so scary. I was 18 and I was just like, I don't know why I've done this. So what I would say is, don't worry about being scared. It is going to be scary. Just go into it with the thought of, this is going to be an amazing experience, and if it's too much for me, I can come home. Yeah, so that's the best way to think about it. And it's so amazing now, because when I went to South Africa in 2012 to contact my family, I had to go down to an internet cafe, and once a week I would talk to people. But now I can just pick up the phone and call my mom whenever I want, and it's so much easier now, I think, to travel and still feel connected to people back home. So if you are scared, I would just say jump into it. Honestly, it's the best thing you can do is just jump straight in. Most of the schools in China require a degree. Yeah, so China can be, if you're looking for a full job and not an internship, they can say that they want a degree. But there's other countries around Asia that you don't need a degree for. So I would just do your research and talk to eye, and they'll definitely help you out there in terms of getting a job. Even if you don't have a degree, it's not necessary to have a degree to get a TEFL job. Okay. Thanks for the reply. Any other questions about, is it possible to find a teaching job? Yes, if your native language is not English. When I was in China, I lived with one person from the UK, two girls from Germany. So their native language was not English, and they were over in China, and they were teaching English. And then there was a lot of German people who came into my school to teach, actually. So yeah. Do you know anyone who teaches in Bali? I do not. That would be an amazing job though. Did your school pay for your visa, or did you pay for yourself? I paid for my visa myself. Now it's a little bit different depending on what school you work for. So I wouldn't say that, yeah, your school will pay for your visa, or no, your school won't. It really just depends on the school you're working for. So I would just keep that in mind when you're going over the contract, and check in the contract if they're going to pay for your visa, or if you have to pay for that yourself, and just include it in your budget. Because in China I had to pay for mine, in Myanmar I had to pay for my initial visa, and then I was okay to get a visa after that. Okay, I'm going to move on to, there's so many questions. Oh my goodness. Okay. Teenage kids, is it possible? I would not be able to talk about traveling with kids because I don't have any. That's not my area of expertise, but I would definitely look into that. Again, there's so many YouTube channels and blogs about traveling with kids, or traveling all sorts of different ways, that I would definitely just do your research on YouTube and stuff. I'm going to move on to the next section because I'm very aware that I've been talking about just the visa process for China and finding a job in China for a while now. So the next part is about teaching in China. So if you had any questions about that, I might be about to answer them now. So as I said, I wanted to teach in the south of China, and I did get that, and I wanted to teach young kids. And in terms of an interview process, like I said, I didn't have an interview. We were observed over a week. But then when I got to China to decide what grade we were going to teach, we had a meeting, all the foreign teachers and all the heads of the grades we were all in a room together, and we discussed, like, oh, I would like to teach the youngest possible. Oh, I don't want to teach really little kids, I want to teach older. And that's kind of how we got our jobs in terms of what grade we taught. So in China, that's how that happened. And then for my second 6 months in China, like I said, I didn't have a interview process. They just, again, were like, we want you to stay, but we want the interns to teach the younger kids, so can you please teach high school which I was terrified to do because teenagers scare me, but I got through it and I managed. So again, like I was saying before, things are going to be scary, and just jump in, and if it's really scary, phone someone from home and just be like, I'm really struggling with this and I don't know how. Just reach out to somebody. And also, I had amazing support. Our support guy was called Ben, and if we ever had any problems, we'd just message Ben and be like, Ben, help us. And he was always there to help. So there's always people you can talk to if things are scary, if things are getting a bit difficult. So my first note is about culture shock. So obviously China is a very different place to Scotland, where I grew up and where I lived for most of my life. So in terms of culture shock, I would say the biggest thing, and it sounds silly to say because of course everything was in Chinese, but it was so strange to be like, when I'd been abroad before, everything still had recognizable characters, so everything was still ABC, even if I couldn't read the words or didn't know what the words said. But then you land in China and everything is in Chinese, which obviously makes sense. It sounds silly to say out loud, but it hits you a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm definitely in China. Okay, I can't read the signs. Street signs, subway signs, they all have the pinyin underneath, so it's a little bit easier. But when we were on the bus from the airport to the place we were staying for induction, I was just looking out the window like, this is amazing. I can't read anything. I'm so excited to learn how to read all these symbols and all these Chinese characters and just know what they mean. And I did learn a few. I'm by no means fluent in Chinese. That's the other thing. You can learn the language of where you're living, but I did not become fluent in Chinese, and I didn't need to for my job. I just learned it for the fun, and so I could talk to my friends who were Chinese. But the most I can say is, my cat is cute and I'd like some noodles, please. So, useful things. But yeah, so that was the first thing that hit me in terms of culture shock. I don't think anything else really fazed me that much, apart from cockroaches. I thought I was fine with cockroaches till I moved to China, and turns out I'm scared of them. So yeah, that was about the only things that really hit me in terms of culture shock. If you are interested about my first couple weeks in China, I have a blog post on my blog, just a little bit of self-plugging here, Well Traveled Lass. So if you're interested in what my first week in China was like, you can go and check my blog for that. I think it's the first blog post is about my induction week, and then I have my first impressions of what teaching was like. So if you want to find out a bit more information about my personal experience with that, and I'm not going to talk for half an hour about it because I could, then definitely go and check out my blog post on that, and about the weather, the culture shock, the eating rice for breakfast. That was culture shock, actually. I wasn't expecting to eat rice for breakfast, but we were served rice for breakfast every day on our induction week, and by the end of the week I was like so excited for breakfast, but the first day I sat down I was like, this is so strange. I don't know if I can eat rice for breakfast. I've only ever had cereal or eggs and toast. So the next thing about China was my housing. So finding housing in China, my accommodation was actually provided by my, oh, thank you for linking my blog Eye to Eye. Somebody's just asked for it, so that's great. Thank you so much. So yeah, finding my housing, I didn't have to look for my housing. My school provided it for me. They had accommodation on the ground. So my campus was huge. I worked at this private boarding school in China, and it was honestly the size of the village I grew up in Scotland. And that was just wild. Like, it would take me about 10 minutes to walk from my apartment to the front gate of the school. So yeah, it was just a bit of a like, wow, this place is huge. It was beautiful. And my apartment was the ground floor, hence all the cockroaches. And it was quite far up the hill, so it rained quite a lot in the south of China, but it didn't really affect our apartment and being on the ground floor in that sense, because the only thing that it affected was the fact that the cockroaches came into the apartment when it rained. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking about cockroaches now because they freak me out. So yeah, I had in China over 1,000 students in first grade, and then I moved to 8th grade, and I again had over 1,000 students. So for the 6 months, and what they did was they divided them into 20-ish classes, and I taught about 40 students at a time. So I would see each class once a week. So that was wild, and actually, like I didn't really expect to be teaching so many people or so many kids at once. So yeah, that was a little bit overwhelming at first, but once I got into it, it was great because it meant you could do so many group activities and you could get everyone up and dancing, and the atmosphere was just amazing in these big classes. But yeah, so I had over 1,000 students a week, and then I had some extra classes that I picked up. So I taught some kindergarten's reading lessons on the side for some extra money. I taught some 8th graders, all from my school, for some extra money as well. So yeah, I had a lot of students in China. So somebody's just asked about pay. The only thing I can say about that is it really depends on a lot of things. It depends on experience, it depends on if you have a degree or not, and it depends on so many things. Depends where you're working, if you're working for a private school or a government school, or if you're working for a language center. So in terms of what's the expected pay, I can't really answer that. I can tell you how much I was paid in China. So my first 6 months, I was on an internship, so I was given a stipend of about £200 a month to live on in China, and that was definitely enough to live on, and it was enough that I managed to save that some of that money every month to go on trips within China. So I traveled to Zhangjiajie, and I traveled to the Terracotta Warriors, and I traveled to Chengdu, and I got to see the pandas, which was why I chose China in the first place. So that was great. I went to see the Chengdu Panda Research base up in Chengdu. So you can save, it is possible to save, and that was on my internship wage. Then I went up by quite a lot when I went into my second half of the year. When I was on a full contract, my wage went right up. And I can't remember how much that was exactly now, but it was, I want to say it was £900 a month, but again, that just depends on your school, and it depends on your experience, depends if you have a degree. I know people who are getting paid more, I know people who are getting paid less, so it really depends on your school. Somebody said, did you get a bank account set up in country you were living in, or was it cash in hand? The first 6 months I was paid cash in hand because it was a stipend, and you're not technically supposed to have a bank account on a student visa, but I did get one set up for the second half. That might have changed now, by the way. I don't know China's rules on bank accounts and stuff. I just knew what I was told almost 3 years ago versus when I was on a full salary. So I did get a Chinese bank account. I actually have two. I had one, and then the school changed their payment process, and they're like, you need to set up a new one. So I had a Chinese bank account, and my school helped me set that up. So it was really easy for me because I had my in-country support girl, and she came with me to the bank, and she was like, you need to put your name here, you need to sign here, you need to say when you were born here, and she pointed to all the things. But I kept writing it backwards because they do the dates differently than the UK, so I think I used about 3 different forms. But I eventually got a bank account set up in China, and I still have it. I didn't need to close it when I left. We'll get onto that in a minute. But yeah, so it just depends on your school. It depends on what kind of contract you're on, what kind of visa you're on, whether or not you're going to get a bank account set up, or whether you're going to get paid cash in hand. How did you go about starting up private lessons with some of your students for extra money? I was actually contacted by one of my teacher friends that I made teaching in China. So she was also a grade 1 teacher. So we both taught grade 1, but she was a Chinese teacher. She taught Chinese, and I want to say she taught science too, but I might be wrong. But she was teaching in grade 1 as well. And she messaged me and she was like, hey, Aileen, one of the mums says her older son would like some lessons, some extra English lessons. Would you be able to do that? And I was like, yes. So something I was going to talk about a bit later, but I'll just start now, is when you're teaching English abroad, opportunities are going to come to you from the strangest places. One, I would say don't say no immediately. Check it out a little bit. And then I said yes to so many strange things. But teaching the 8th graders wasn't one of those strange things. I'll get onto the strange thing in a minute. But yeah, teaching 8th grade, one of my friends just said, oh, one of the mums has asked if one of the foreign teachers can be a tutor. Would you like to do it for some extra money? I said, yes, of course, because at the time, that was when I was on my £200 a month, and I continued that into my second half of the year as well, because I love teaching basically, so I was just like, I just still want to teach, and obviously the fact that I could earn a little bit more money was extra. And then the kindergartens, and it was again one of my teacher friends. She wanted someone to teach her son to read English, and he was still in kindergarten. And she was like, would you mind? And what I would do is once a week I would go and sit and we would read a book together, him and two or three of his friends. And she just paid me however much for how long it took me to read the book. And then we'd play some games based around the book. So yeah. Did you get other benefits like medical, for example? As far as I'm aware, in China I didn't have medical, but I had insurance that I bought myself. And then I think in terms of benefits, I got a bonus for Teacher's Day. So on Teacher's Day, I got 1,000 yuan. And then I got a bonus at the end of the year, at the end of my teaching contract, which was called, I think they called it something like your travel bonus, which was like payment for you to travel back to Beijing if that's where your flight was leaving from. I used it to travel around China. I have experience teaching as a teaching assistant in England. Okay, that would definitely help with your application. Yeah. Would it be likely to be placed with a friend if you go together? So if you put that on your preference, yes. From my experience, the company that placed us in China, I went by myself, but I had friends that I made in China who arrived as a group. So there was 4 of them, I believe, or maybe there was 5. I'm not sure, but 4 of them got placed in a similar area. 2 of them got placed at my school together, and then 2 of them got placed in Zhongshan. So I was in Sanshan, and Zhongshan was the nearest big city. It took about 45 minutes to get to. So they were all placed close enough to each other that they could visit each other, and then 2 and 2. So the 2 brothers got placed together, and then the 2 friends got placed together. How would you recommend to price private lessons? How much do you think you're worth? How much did I charge now? I can't remember. It was so long ago. So my first bunch of lessons, there were 3 of them. So I think I said 250 yuan per hour, and I taught for an hour and a half. And then they were quite happy with that. So that's about £25 an hour if you work in pounds. If you don't, I'm sorry, I'm really bad at maths, so I can't do that. Do I have to have previous teaching experience? No, you don't need previous teaching experience. It will help with your application, and it might mean that they'll pay you more depending on what school you end up with. They might say, oh, you've got previous experience, so we'll pay you a bit more. But honestly, you don't need it. You need your TEFL. You need a bubbly, bright, happy personality ready to do anything, but you don't need previous teaching experience. So I would say anything that you have in your any experience you've had where you've been either working with kids, or maybe you've been a tour guide, or maybe you've been a pizza making party host, which I was. I put that on my application, and that was great. Did you teach online when you weren't teaching in a classroom for extra money? I have not personally done that, but I know people who have. Actually, my flatmate teaches online with Palfish, and she works a few hours every evening just to get a little bit of extra money. I've been to quite a few places as a tourist to Myanmar. Are you based in Yangon, and how are you finding living there? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm very aware that I've already been talking for 40 minutes and this is only supposed to be an hour long. So where do I go to start teaching online? I believe I have a bunch of resources for teaching online, so maybe they can help you, Dion, with that. Okay, so I promised my story about saying yes to something a bit strange, so I'll just tell you about that in China. So like I said, I would recommend saying yes to everything that seems safe. Obviously, be wary of scams and be wary of things that might be a little bit dodgy, but this was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And going into it, I had no idea what was going to happen. My friend, the same friend who hooked me up with the teaching job, messaged me and she said, Aileen, I need somebody to help with the local TV channel and they want a foreigner. And I was like, okay. And she picked me up in the morning. I think it was about 8 or 9 a.m. on a Saturday. She picked me up on the back of her scooter and her electric bike, not a push scooter. And we zoomed off into the middle of town. We got lost. And eventually we found the place. And it was this little community centre. They said, okay, welcome to our community centre. Please play this Chinese instrument. And I was like, what? I don't know how to play Chinese instrument. So eventually what happened was the TV channel were trying to get young people back into these traditional Chinese instruments. So what happened were these experts in these beautiful instruments were all playing, and I was watching, and they were filming me watching, and they were like, okay, now you. And I was like, oh God, okay. So they sat me down at the bench, and one of the experts came, and he put his hands on top of my hands and gave me the little stick things to play with, and I played this beautiful Chinese instrument horribly, and they filmed it and they put it on Chinese TV. So it was an amazing experience, and I would not have got anywhere near some of those instruments, I don't think, if it wasn't for that experience. So like I said, just like say yes to things, because teaching English abroad will open up so many amazing experiences that you just wouldn't expect to have. And I never expected to, one, be on Chinese TV, or two, be playing traditional Chinese instruments with experts of those instruments. So that was just one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. So I would definitely say yes to almost everything. Obviously assess the danger before you say yes, but that was definitely not a dangerous thing, apart from maybe riding the scooter through 8 a.m. traffic. That was a little bit scary. Okay, so moving on to Myanmar. So somebody was just asking about Myanmar. So I am based in Yangon, and I've been based in Yangon the whole time I've been here. I arrived here in February. I actually have it tattooed on my arm in Burmese. I arrived here February the 15th, 2019, so last year. And again, it was a strange story, but it was a good story. So I was teaching in China, and the placement company in China said, hey, there's somebody that wants to use our services to place their teachers in China. Would you mind emailing them back and forth and giving them the information of your experience? So I did. And after that, Mike was very, very kind and said, thank you for your answers. If you ever want a job in Southeast Asia, like, give me a shout and I can help you get a job. And I was like, that would be amazing, because, you know, I'm supposed to be in China till the end of this year, but then I don't really know what I'm going to do. Like, I've not got a plan, basically, which is the story of my life. So he was like, we have jobs in Myanmar. Would you be interested in working in Myanmar? And I was like, yes. That sounds amazing. Like, I'd always wanted to visit Myanmar and go to Bagan, which is just one of the most beautiful places. I have been to Bagan now. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. But yeah, so I think the process as it happened, if I'm remembering correctly, he said, do you want a job in Southeast Asia? I said, yes. He said, we have jobs in Myanmar. Would you be interested? I said, yes. Again, say yes to experiences. They will be presented to you when you least expect it, and just say yes and dive straight in, because you just never know where it's going to lead you, and it just sometimes turns into the most magnificent adventure. So yeah, we were emailing back and forth, and I had a phone call interview with him, and he said, okay, I think you'd be great for this job that we've got coming up in Myanmar. And then he invited me down to Thailand, which they had a month-long Tefl course in Thailand that they wanted me to do to get used to the way they run things in their schools. So I did that. I met some incredible people on that if any of them are watching, hello. It was one of the most amazing times, and they immersed us so much in Thai culture. We had Thai culture lessons, and we got to experience what it would be like to teach in a Thai school. We got cooking lessons, and I just had the most amazing month. And I rounded it out by going to the full moon party in Koh Phangan, which is something I never thought I would do. But it was an amazing experience, and I'm very glad I've done it. I don't know if I'd do it again. The full moon party, it was a bit intense, but it was so much fun. And like I said, if I hadn't said yes to that opportunity, like I just would have missed out on so many amazing experiences. So that was August of 2018. I went back to China, finished my final 6 months in China, and then I arrived in Myanmar in February of 2019. So let me just check my notes and make sure I'm talking about the right stuff. Okay, yeah, so the visa process for Myanmar is so much easier than China. Oh my goodness, like I can't even explain how much easier it is. If China was like level 10 of difficulty, Myanmar is like level 2 of difficulty. It was so easy. When I arrived in Myanmar, what I needed was a letter from the company I was going to be working from and $50. I believe that's still the same, although the airport is currently not open because of COVID-19. But yeah, so you arrive with your letter and your $50. It has to be like a pristine $50 note, but that's about the most difficult part of the whole process. You give that to immigration. They put a sticker in your passport, and you go and get your bag, and that was it. Compared to China, it was so easy. I didn't have to have anything like what I needed in China. There was no medical checkup, none of that. So Myanmar was just a breeze. It was like a walk in the park compared to my visa process in China. So that was amazing in terms of like the difference between the visa process. So yeah, some schools will then apply for you to have a 6-month visa. Some schools will ask you to do visa runs. So yeah, it just depends on your school again in terms of visa, like how long you're going to be staying and all that stuff. Is there many teaching jobs in Thailand, and do you have to have a degree to teach in Thailand? Thailand's not my area of expertise, so I can't comment on that, but maybe Eye to Eye can help you with that one, Katie. Sorry. Got any questions about Myanmar and China visa process? I'll be down with that. Can I apply to jobs while completing a Tefl course? Will my application be considered? I really want to work in South Korea next year. I didn't apply for my jobs. I had an internship lined up on the condition that I finished my Tefl qualification. So again, somebody from Eye to Eye will be able to help you with that question. Okay, so my last topic of this live, and if you have any questions, please send them through, and I'll have a little scroll as well if I've missed anything, is what it's been like teaching here in Myanmar, and then also what it's been like since COVID-19 happened and what it's been like to teach online. So when I arrived in Myanmar, it was so different because in China, my group of foreigners was so small, but in Myanmar, because I'm based in Yangon, there's such a huge community of expats in Myanmar, and there's so much more in terms of like activities and stuff to do. So one of my favorite things to do here in Myanmar is the drink and draw. Drink and draw is like this activity that they set up. I think there's a few of them in different countries, but you go along once a month, they give you a canvas and you can paint things. That's been amazing. I've done about 5 of those now, so it's been great. And I think they only do them in Yangon in Myanmar, but I know heaps of cities around the world do them, and it's a great way to bond with your like fellow teachers. You can all book a ticket together and go and enjoy that. So that's been great, because in China the only things I could really do like with my friends would be to go to like local restaurants and just like, which was great to like have a chat and bond over rice noodles, which are my favorite Chinese food, which I know is really not very exciting, but it's fine. So yeah, another thing about Myanmar, so I'm a celiac, if anyone knows what that is. If you don't, it means I have an allergy to gluten, and means that I get quite sick if I do eat gluten. Sorry, my hair is such a mess. It's because I keep playing with it. So yeah, I have an allergy to gluten, and in China, I learned how to say I am allergic to, which was really helpful. but it was still a little bit scary for me eating out and stuff, because a lot of Chinese food has soy sauce in it. And also getting just the basics for me in China was quite difficult. So things like cereal, things like bread, for a gluten-free person was a little bit difficult to find. But like I said, a lot of people for breakfast will just eat rice in China. So there were alternatives for me to eat, and my breakfast, lunch, and dinner were provided by my school. So that was great. So yeah, my experience of Myanmar in terms of food for me, as someone with food allergies, and I'm a vegetarian, just to make things more difficult for me, it's been so much easier in Myanmar in terms of that experience, because I've been able to find gluten-free cereal here. If you're from America or South Africa and you know what cocoa pebbles are, they have those here, so they're gluten-free, and I've been able to do that. There's a local baker here who does gluten-free bread and gluten-free cookies, so that's been amazing. So that's been great in terms of what I can eat here, because in China I did manage eventually, when I set up a Taobao, to order some food in. So I managed to order cereal and biscuits, but still no sandwiches, which was really hard. And also it's very hard to find cheese in China. It does exist, but you gotta search for it. So yeah, in terms of finding housing in Myanmar, that couldn't be easier, if I'm honest. When I got here, my housing was provided. This year, my housing was not provided, but I got a stipend for housing. So there's so many things on Facebook. So what I would say about Myanmar is it completely runs on Facebook. Like, everything is done on Facebook. It's very rare for you to be emailing someone. You're probably going to be messaging someone on Facebook. Companies sometimes won't even have a website. They'll just have a Facebook page. So everything in Myanmar runs on Facebook, including finding housing. So the first thing to do if you're looking for housing in Myanmar would be to go on to Yangon Connections, and then Yangon Connections will be able to hook you up with all of the accommodation, so all the accommodation Facebook pages. So now all I see on my Facebook is just flat listings. They just come up on my page all the time, and I'm like scrolling through them, even though I have a perfectly good apartment and I'm not looking for one. I just love looking at the pictures. So yeah, finding accommodation in Myanmar is super easy. All you need to do is hop onto Facebook, search Yangon accommodation or Myanmar accommodation, and you're gonna come up with listings. Like, it's so easy. And I definitely recommend, if you're coming to Myanmar, to hop on to Yangon Connections and join the group, because so much information is shared in that group that you're just never going to be short of information. Whatever you're looking for, you just pop a query in there, and it's gonna give you the answer. We found so many things. My friend has a pet cat. My flatmate has a pet cat that she found using Yangon Connections. I found a yoga mat using Yangon Connections. I found a gluten-free baker using Yangon Connections. So information-wise, Yangon Connection, if you're coming to Myanmar, I definitely recommend joining that group. Yeah, what's next? School. Okay. So when I started working in Myanmar, I came from China with over 1,000 students into Myanmar. I had 15 students. It was amazing. Like, the difference, I noticed it immediately. Like, I got to see 15 students 5 days a week, and I was able to really build up a connection with them, and I was able to focus my lessons to their personalities more, and it was just such a great experience going from having over 1,000 students to having 15. That gradually built up. The longer I was here, I was given more classes. So I ended up, by the end of me leaving Myanmar in the end of October last year, because I took about 4 months off, I had 25 students. Now I have around 40 to 50 students spread over 5 classes. So yeah, it gradually increased, but when I came from China to Myanmar, I had 15 students, and it was so, to be honest, I think I worked harder for those 15 students than I did for the 1,000 students, because I got to know them so much more that I just wanted to do everything they were interested in. I was like researching and trying to get it into my lessons so that they had that. So before I move on to teaching online, does anybody have any questions that I can answer? Do they have rules to say how many years you can be with Tefl, how many years you're allowed to teach? No, you can teach. You can make this into a career if you want. You can you can do this for the rest of your life, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I hope I'll be doing, is teaching English for the rest of my life. That's my plan anyway. We'll see what happens. I do want to go back to uni at some point, but I know I can still teach online with TEFL. So I would say no, there's no limit. There's no age limit to teaching TEFL. You can teach for as long as you want. Can non-native speakers work in Myanmar? I have met non-native speakers who do teach in Myanmar. Again, it just depends on your school. It depends on how much you'll get paid, things like that. So it's just terms of looking at your contract. A lot of places do look for native speakers, but it's by no means a necessity. So you can definitely find jobs for non-native speakers. Do you have a previous degree, and did you use I2I as a placement agency? Yes. So I used I2I as my initial placement agency for China. They worked with a company called Imerchi. So I linked through I2I to Imerchi, and then they placed me in China. And I do have a degree. And in terms of finding a placement, the only thing it will affect is how much you get paid, but you can definitely work without a degree. Can you please recommend companies that will hire without a degree? Thank you so much. I2I can give you those. I missed the beginning. Just want to ask, where in Myanmar are you? I am based in Yangon in Myanmar, so that is the biggest city but not the capital of Myanmar. Okay, so I think I've answered the other questions on here. Oh, last question. I will have my bachelor's degree in geography by the end of 2020. I'm interested in Thailand or Bali. Which bachelor's degree do they acquire? Usually I think it's just a bachelor's degree. It doesn't matter what it's in. My bachelor's degree is in communication design, so I have a bachelor's degree of honors. But like I said, you don't need a degree to teach TEFL. How did you start teaching online? So I'm just about to talk about that. Thank you. How do the internships work? I can give you all the information about that, but my internship in China was a student visa. I was there to learn Chinese, and I was there to teach English. So I was on a stipend of about £200 a month, and then once I finished with my internship, I graduated into a full-time TEFL job. Okay, teaching online. So when things started to shut down in Myanmar, our school had to shut completely down in the middle of March. So for middle of March and April, I didn't teach at all. We were completely free. We had no work to do for that month. I hadn't actually worked since January. I came back to Myanmar for a week, and then everything closed down. So I was meant to teach in China from November last year to July this year, but because of COVID, I couldn't get back into China, and my school had to terminate all foreign teacher contracts because they couldn't afford to be paying the foreign teachers. So unfortunately, I did have my contract terminated in China, but I was very lucky that my job in Myanmar said, we're still looking for teachers if you want to come back to Myanmar. So I hopped on a plane straight away and got here in March, the beginning of March. I taught for a week, and then everything had to close down because of the coronavirus. So yeah, we were off for about a month and a half, and then we started to open up for our students. If they wanted to, they could come and do online classes. So that's how I got to teaching online. In terms of other ways to teach online, like I said, my flatmate, for extra money, she does teach on Palfish, and I have a lot of resources about teaching online. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely find some information on I TEFL's website, or they'll leave a comment just now. But yeah, so teaching online for me at the start, it was back to basics of TEFL. If you've done your TEFL course, or if you're in the middle, you'll know about the PPP method, presentation, practice, production. So it's straight back to that, back to what I was teaching in China. So that was for about the first 2 months or the first month. I can't remember. Everything, I don't know about you guys, but everything has blended into like one big blob of months. I don't know which months things happened in anymore. But eventually we then opened it up to being, we're going to teach from the textbooks again. So in my language center, we teach from textbooks. So when we went on to online, initially we were like, oh, we don't know how that's going to work. So we started off just teaching basic grammar skills and things like that to our young learners. And then we opened that up to listening and speaking for adults as well. Now we're teaching from the textbooks, and we're also teaching listening and speaking clubs for young learners and adults. So I currently have 5 classes that I teach online. I have 3 at the weekend. So I have 2 young learner classes at the weekend and 1 adult listening and speaking. And then Monday to Wednesday, I have listening and speaking club with adults and then also with young learners. So that's how I ended up teaching online here. It's been a little bit of a struggle. If you have been to Myanmar before, you'll know that power cuts happen. The internet doesn't always work. I'm so glad that it's worked for this live because it doesn't always. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a struggle, but in terms of adapting to online, I think the students adapted really quickly. I've been really impressed with them. I'm really proud of how quickly they've adapted. And I have adapted slowly, but we have got there. So yeah, do they provide lesson plans or do you have to create them? I create all my lesson plans at the moment. So I teach from textbooks, which you can see behind me. So there are lesson plans within the textbooks, but I build around that. At our school, we do something called Beyond English. So we go beyond the textbook and we teach 4 extra skills. Oh, I'm on the spot and now I have to remember them. Research literacy, communication, interpersonal communication, public speaking, and did I say research literacy already? Oh goodness. I hope my boss isn't watching this. Okay, but yeah, we go beyond the book. So I plan my lesson based on the textbook, and then I have extra activities that I do with them. So for example, I just did a whole project with my young learners, which has been my favorite thing I've done so far. We were studying ocean plastic and the effects that using plastic bags for our shopping and things like this can have on the environment. We got to talk to an amazing marine scientist called Alethea Magid, who I went to high school with, who was so amazing, and she listened to the hundreds of questions that my students had, and she took her time to answer every single one of them. So that's been amazing. So yeah, long answer, but short answer. I do create my own lesson plans, but some schools will give you lesson plans that you have to follow. It really depends on your school again. What do you prefer to teach, online or in a classroom, and why? So now I'd say I'm 50-50. I enjoy teaching online now that I've got the hang of it, but when I will always go back to I just love teaching in the classroom. There's so much more you can do in the classroom. You can definitely do a lot online, but like just the connection you have with the students in the classroom, for me, is just one of the most amazing things. Like just getting to interact with them in that way. But as I've been teaching more and more online, and I've kind of relaxed into that way of teaching. I've definitely been enjoying teaching online as well now. So I think it depends on your preference, but I'm very animated. I don't know if you can tell by how much I've been using my hands. So teaching in the classroom is amazing for me because I can move my whole body and get the point across, especially if they're learning new vocabulary and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I prefer teaching in the classroom, but I do not dislike teaching online anymore. The first month I was doing it, I was like, oh, this is so hard, but now I've got used to it. So yeah. Do they have a certain curriculum to follow? So that again depends on your school. At the moment, like I said, we are working from textbooks, so that is the curriculum, and we have our Beyond English curriculum that we do as well, which our teachers design some Beyond English lessons within our lesson to help students to learn some like life skills and stuff, so like research literacy, interpersonal communication, and all these kind of things. So we don't have like a curriculum in the sense that like schools in the UK would have, where they have like these are the learning aims and all that. We have our own version of a curriculum, yes. When I was in China, I didn't have a curriculum. I had a list of topics, if you can call that a curriculum, but I also tried to incorporate what I learned in my time in Thailand about like a way to build lessons so that they have an overarching sort of mini curriculum that you've created yourself. Yeah, so kind of, but it's not, yeah. I don't know if that was a good answer. I'm sorry. I tried. Is there much open there now? Is it still in lockdown? So what we're in here is called stay-at-home order, which means we have had to stay inside apart from to go to the supermarket or if you need to go to the hospital. And it's kind of been the same the whole way through. In August, we had a little bit of a month where we could go out and do things. And my school actually opened for adults again, as long as they were socially distanced, we could be in the classroom. But now we're back in stay-at-home order, and some of the rules have been relaxed, but things like bars and stuff are still not open. Restaurants are only open for takeaway. So we're pretty much still in lockdown in that sense, but it's not called lockdown here. It's called stay-at-home. Okay, so we have a little bit of time left. If you guys have any other questions, please pop them in the comments. And while I'm waiting for those to come through, I will tell you my favorite thing I've done in Myanmar since I started teaching here. So when I got to Myanmar, one of the things that I wanted to do was go to Bagan. I obviously got to do that, and it was amazing. But one of the other things that I'd heard about was something called Tinjin. Tinjin is Myanmar's New Year, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. It's honestly a massive water fight for the whole of the city, and you cannot go outside without getting wet, like literally. So that's in April. So that is Myanmar New Year, and honestly, like I don't even know how to describe this experience so that it will come across as amazing as it did for me when we did it. But we rented this truck, so this pickup truck with the back empty. There's just some bamboo sticks for us to hold on to, tied to the side, and with our phones in waterproof bags, we drove through the town and got sprayed by fire hoses, by other cars driving past, throwing buckets over us. Like, when I say it's a water fight for the whole city, I mean it is a water fight for the whole city. So it's honestly one of the most amazing experiences. And if you go to my Instagram page, you will see I have a highlight called Tinjin, and I really recommend watching that if you're thinking of coming to Myanmar, because honestly, it was one of the most amazing experiences ever. I've never experienced anything like it. I was so sad that it had to be cancelled this year, obviously for good reason, but I'm so excited for it to hopefully be up and running again next year, because the Myanmar New Year is honestly one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life, and I've never experienced anything else like it. So yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Is there any questions before I go? Oh, someone says the live feed has been interrupted. I'm really sorry if people are experiencing that. Like I said, the Wi-Fi situation in Myanmar can be a little bit touch and go sometimes. Hopefully you're all still with me and I didn't tell that story to no one. So do they provide you with a lot of resources to use in the classroom, or do you have to pay for it yourself? Again, that depends on your school. In China, I paid for everything myself, so I bought things like colored paper at Christmas time so that my class could make Christmas cards, and I created my own little puppets and stuff to use in the classroom, and I paid for all that by myself in China. But here in Myanmar, we have like a budget that we can use for resources. Once a semester we can go and top up anything. We have a big store cupboard with lots of stuff in. So again, that just depends on your school in terms of resources. How long did it take you to finish your TEFL? I did my TEFL in about a month, but I think if I remember correctly, I had 4 months to do it. But as I said at the start of this live, I am a massive procrastinator and I finished it. I would not recommend that. I would recommend taking your time because you can then fully absorb everything, but I am a procrastinator, so it took me about a month and maybe a month and a half to finish. Oh, Eye to Eye says that it's running okay for them. Okay, so it's not my Wi-Fi. Phew. Okay. Do you know anything about working in the Middle East? I'm afraid not. That is not my area of expertise. I know more about China and Myanmar, so I can't help you with that, unfortunately. Is it easy to find a job in Asia once you've completed your TEFL? Could it be easier? Honestly, it could not be easier. Like I said, I follow a few Facebook groups. There's one called TEFL Jobs in Vietnam. They're always advertising. Eye to Eye TEFL have a list of jobs on their website. It couldn't be easier once you've got your TEFL to find a job. There's such a demand for English teachers in Asia. When you're done with your course, does TEFL see to your accommodation, and do they put you into a job in a country? Also, do you have a choice where you'd like to teach? Okay, I'll break that down a little bit. So accommodation depends on your school, where you end up being placed. My school in China, I had accommodation provided for me, and that was on campus. but I believe some people were put in a hotel and then they were given a couple weeks to find accommodation. It just depends on your school. In Myanmar, when I arrived, I had accommodation provided for me, and then eventually I transitioned into getting my own apartment with my current flatmate after our contract was up there. Do you have a choice of where you'd like to teach? Do they put you into a job in a country? So like I said, ITI have loads of jobs on their website that you can, I'm sure they will give you a link to in the comments. And yes, of course you have a choice of where you'd like to teach. When I got to China, we were told put your top where you'd first like to go, second, third. So you had 3 options of where you'd like to teach within China with my internship program. And yeah, I was lucky and got my first choice, but you might get your second or third, but you do get a choice in that sense. But I would say, like, wherever you're given, it's going to be what you make of it, because the thing about TEFL is it's so much about how you approach the experience, because it can just be so different depending on where you are, that like if you don't go in there with the attitude of like this is going to be amazing, then it might not be what you expect it to be. You just have to go in there and go, this is just I'm going to make the most of every single experience that I'm presented with. I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to do everything that's presented to me. And like I said, you'll end up doing some crazy things that you never thought you'd even begin to do. Thank you for all the information. I have to go now. Okay, bye-bye. What else do we have? Is it working here? It is working here in the US. Okay, excellent. So not all of us. Okay, like I said, the Wi-Fi situation in Myanmar can be a bit dodgy. Honestly, I thought there was probably going to be a power cut halfway through this live, so I'm so glad we've made it through the whole hour without a power cut. Thank you for all the info. You're super helpful. Thank you. Not much of a procrastinator if you finished it in 1 month. Well, I had to finish it in a month because I had a deadline. So yeah, I mean, if I hadn't had the deadline, who knows how long that would have taken me to finish, because I'm definitely a procrastinator. Private or public, which is better? My school was kind of a private public school, if that makes sense. Like, China's a little bit strange like that. It was a boarding school, which the government used to test out new teaching methods, which is what my teachers told me. I don't know if that's 100% true. It's what I was told, though. So yeah, I can't tell you exactly private or public which is better. I can say that I prefer language centers to schools, if that helps, just because the class sizes are smaller and you have longer with your classes. So my classes in Myanmar are 2 hours, whereas my classes in China were only 45 minutes. So I prefer language centers to schools, but that's just me. It just depends on your personality. Can you start to apply if you're almost done with your studies, or you can only start after the completion of the course? I would ask ITI about that. I'm not sure. Such great advice. I felt the same. Went to teach English in France. Always keep an open mind. Yeah. Do you apply for jobs when you get to your destination or before? I applied for both of mine before. So my internship I applied for before I arrived in China, and then we had our induction, and that was what gave us, it was kind of like our interview. Our induction week was basically our interview, and then I applied for my job here in Myanmar before I got here as well. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, I will say goodbye to you all. So basically today, if you missed the start of this, it will be available on ITI's Facebook page after I end the video. But we just spoke about my experiences in China, what it was like to get a visa in China, what it was like to get a visa in Myanmar, my experiences teaching in Myanmar, and how I found teaching during this COVID-19 pandemic. So that's what we spoke about. Let me just check my notes in case I missed anything. So yeah, like I said, the best thing about TEFL is being open-minded and ready for anything, because so many opportunities come with TEFL that you wouldn't even expect. You might end up on Chinese TV, you might end up in a citywide water fight, you might end up on stage with all your students dressed as pirates and they're fighting a sea monster. Who knows? And that's the best thing about Myanmar, I think. Come at Myanmar, it is, but also teaching TEFL, teaching English. Just come at it with an open mind, go into teaching English as if it's going to be one big adventure, because that is literally what it is. It's the biggest adventure you're ever going to experience. You'll meet people from all over the world. You'll be exposed to cultures that are so unlike your own. You'll learn so much about the world. Honestly, teaching English has changed the way I look at the world so much. Not only has it made the world feel smaller, but it's just changed the way I just tackle everything in my day-to-day life. Tefl has changed my life, basically, is the summary of this hour-long presentation. If you want the too long didn't read, Tefl changed my life. Are all teachers in their 20s, or are teachers in their 30s as well? Yep, teachers in their 20s, teachers in their 30s. I've met teachers in their 40s and 50s. Honestly, doesn't matter what age you are, you can teach Tefl. You just have to come at it with energy, you have to come at it with enthusiasm. If you want to see what I think makes a good Tefl teacher, I have a blog post that was posted last week all about what I think makes a perfect Tefl teacher. I did mine at nearly 60. Thelma, yes, you can teach English at any age. There is no age limit to Tefl. You just need to come at it with enthusiasm, and you need to come at it with a passion for new cultures, a passion for teaching, a passion for experiencing life, basically, and you are more than qualified as long as you get your Tefl. Excellent. Any other questions? Do you have to wait for your certificate? So I think I has answered that. My brother is currently in China. He's teaching English and he had to do his Tefl course in 1 week. Oh my goodness, that sounds stressful. I did that to myself, but having to do it in 1 week sounds really stressful. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for coming to my Facebook Live webinar with Eye to Eye. It has been a pleasure answering all your questions, and I hope that you are. I hope that you have enjoyed this and that you've learned something, and that you're considering teaching in Asia. Honestly, come to Asia, come to Myanmar. You will have the time of your life. Top tips for living in Asia. If you're going to China, download the app WeChat. If you're going to Myanmar, make sure you have Facebook. You all obviously do because you're on a Facebook Live right now, but everything in Myanmar runs on Facebook. Be open to cultural differences, because Asia is nothing like probably the country you're coming from. So just be open-minded and ready to experience that. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. And I hope to see you again in another live webinar. It has been great to answer all your questions and tell you my story. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye now, and check out my blog and my Instagram if you want to see more about living in Asia. Okay, bye-bye.